Hey Matthew, so good to see you. Thanks for being here. Got some good questions for you. Excited to talk.
Thanks for having me, Steve. It's been to say it's been a hot minute is it's an understatement, and
That's
it's
right.
been
Been
so
a while.
amazing watching Streamline Hi-Fi unfold. I mean, the product you've been coming up with over the past few years is just gorgeous, man. So I've just been watching with tons of drool coming out of my mouth. So
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, and I feel the exact same way about Old Soul Record Club, man. What a cool concept you got going, and who better to have curating your collection than Matthew himself? I mean, it's just perfect.
yeah, it's as weird as COVID was, it's amazing, what, and I hate to use the dreaded P word, what, pivoted through COVID. And, for me, not being able to play anywhere from 150 to 200 tour dates a year, trying to figure out what am I going to do with all this time in my hands. Just kind of parlaying that into, once again, just my overall love and passion for music. And it's been really, really fun. Like something that literally was birthed in, the garage of my house to where it kind of kept building up in terms of inventory and clients. And then the online subscription aspect of it was birthed. And it's been amazing. It's allowed me to not have to tour like I used to and focus on other musical projects in Nashville, like producing session work, music director roles, and being home with my family, which is quite a concept.
Perfect. And I mean, you look
Then
throughout history, how many great businesses have started in a garage. I love that it started in a garage. That's awesome.
totally, you know,
Well, I got some
I mean,
questions
like
for you. You ready?
let's hope that this morphs into like an Apple type of scenario, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Old
So,
Soul next to Apple on the stock market. Hell yeah.
right.
All right, well, I got some questions for you. I'm gonna start ripping
Sure.
them if you're ready.
Yeah, totally.
All right, first one. What's the first record that really changed the way you listen to music?
Sure. I grew up on my parents' record collection, and it was a myriad of genres always playing, between folk, rock and roll, blues, classical. But the one record specifically that, I mean, it wasn't just a love of records, it was a love of music, and it started my curiosity and my wormholeness and my obsession and overall nonstop passion with music. But Jimi Hendrix Axis Bold as Love. And between the artwork on that record, which is incredible, it's a gatefold cover. Both sides of the panel, made up the front cover of like it, kind of like an Indian, beautiful artwork piece of Jimi Hendrix with Noel Redding and Mitch Mitchell with this, I mean, just elaborate, elaborate painting. Um, it hit me like a ton of bricks. After like the EXP interview portion of it, when all the feedback and the guitars and like the polyrhythmic bombastic drums came in, I remember just it's that was that moment where I was like, I am totally into this music thing, and it's totally going to be a massive part of my life, and I don't want to not be a part of it. So
Great answer. I love that album too, man. I mean, every generation is discovering Jimmy at different times, and what an experience he's created for everybody and for the next generations to come. It's crazy.
yeah, and it's every time I listen to that album, it's like I'm hearing it for the first time, and there's new things I pick up on it all the time. You know?
Yeah. All right, number two. You've toured around the U.S., probably Europe a bit. But when you get to come home from all that touring, what does it really mean to you to drop the needle on a record and just sit and listen?
It really means that I don't have to focus on anything else right now. I can be incredibly intentional about what I choose to listen to. A lot of times it's with my wife, and now with our daughter Hazel, which is super cool because we're kind of doing the litmus test of what records are perking the ears even at 3 months old. But yeah, it's having a great vintage system at home where you can just hear everything, and you can just really tune out the rest of the world and totally focus on that collection of music. That's what I think about when I'm off the road and I get to, listen to my personal collection. It's a special thing.
Yeah, agreed. What's the difference for you between streaming a song and putting a record on of that song?
I guess the easiest Cliff Notes version of that answer is nobody asked you to show you their MP3 collection, did they?
Great
Or
answer.
nobody asked to see nobody asked to see your collection of Spotify playlists. You know what I mean? It's like it's there's something that I've always loved about having something tangible, whether it's I mean anything you can collect, but from a musical standpoint, one thing that drives me and keeps me always influenced and just passionate about music is the musicology aspect of music. And if I decide to follow or really, really, become influenced by an artist or band after I like soak them up like a sponge, I want to find out what influenced them and vice versa, and who influenced. And it's that constant process of influence and lineage and how music keeps evolving, and that's one thing that I don't think digital music will ever be able to tap into. And also from whether it's going to like a public library or somebody's library or your own personal music library or my own personal music library, I like to be able to like look through the entire collection and be like, all right, what do I want to listen to today? Or like, wow, like I'm going to listen to this artist, and then I can think, yeah, I know that album was directly influenced by this other artist. And then you go and it's like you're always mixing and matching and pulling to see like similar, aspects, differences, everything, And I think that's one of the beautiful things about sharing music through a tangible format is you can listen together like that, and like then it comes down to like the artwork of a record, and like the liner notes, which you completely lose in a digital format. I mean, there's so many aspects that go into a record, whether kind of what we were previously talking about with Jimi Hendrix, like, is it a gatefold cover? Is it a single cover? Is it a die cut cover where there are other parts that unfolded? Like, was it a matte finish? Was it a smooth finish? Did it kind of have a different texture, like a different smell to it? Like, was it a printed inner sleeve? Was it not? Was it a company inner sleeve? It's like all of those things, and like it's something that I think in this day and age where everything is so immediate, people forget to like take a step back to even breathe for a minute and really like take inventory of what's around them, And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about taking the time and being intentional with yourself to listen to a record in a collection of music, you know?
I love that. I mean, we all know digital is not going anywhere, and the convenience of it is nice, but listening to records and someone's collection and the experience of it is just unmatched and will be for a very long time, in my opinion.
100%. I mean, and it's a great way to, you know, I guess take a piece of history with you, and obviously different genres pop up as being more relevant or popular in different eras and stuff like that. And then you have some albums and artists and bands that just have that timeless, aspect to them too, where they might not necessarily have tried to tap into some of like, the fads or other aspects of what were making certain genres or artists or bands like, the it factor during the era, but it's a great way to like measure time. And then from a nostalgic standpoint, I mean, I can put certain records on and know exactly where I was when I heard it for the first time, who I was if I was with somebody. if I bought it from a record store, if I was borrowing it, if it was part of my parents' collection, and that's one thing that I don't think people can say like, man, that time I put Spotify on and listened to that song for the first time. It really changed my life. I had my earbuds in and I was out, doing something else, and it just kind of perked my ears. It's completely lost with in most case scenarios of how people consume music these days.
Oh, I agree. The memories attached to the records themselves and the artwork and the lyrics, man. Yeah, nobody's talking about those kind of memories with streaming, right? So,
Totally,
yeah.
100%.
All right, so you describe yourself as a bloodhound for vinyl, and I'd like you to explain what is it that makes the hunt for records so intriguing for you?
I've always, I mean, throughout my life, I've always been a collector, whether it be, baseball cards, comic books, different pieces of, musical gear, guitars, amps, pedals, stuff like that. And I think it's really just about like the thrill of discovery, you know? I mean, once again, right, we're living in a time where click of a finger can get you pretty much anything that you want in the age of immediacy, right?
Hmm.
And but I think there's something you can never fully put a price on to finding something in the wild on your own, And for me, kind of getting back to that previous question of like the musicology aspect of what I really love doing, it's such a thrill for me to, be on a record hunt where I discover a record I didn't even know about, whether it be an artist or band that somehow put a record out that I wasn't, familiar with, or if it was, an artist or band that they were influenced by. It's always so interesting, and I always just feel like a little kid anytime I'm on a record hunt. And it's just like the thrill of like, man, like what am I gonna find today? Who knows? Like maybe there's that like rare first pressing gem that someone didn't know they had, or like someplace didn't know they had, and you stumble on that, um, it's it's always an amazing thrill for me. So if I'm not playing music or writing or producing music, like I'm always looking for records. It's something that always gets me jazzed, no matter where I'm at. You know.
I love it. I can just see the love and the passion you have for that. Just in that answer is great. Now, with Old Soul Record Club, you're curating for individuals. What's the process for that? Like, how are you curating for each person?
Sure. So the basic premise of joining the club is, you go to the website, and then when you scroll down from the homepage, you're going to see all the different price tiers, right? Starting with a $25 a month package all the way through, I mean, name your price tier, which is essentially called the dealer's choice. And whichever tier the member decides to join, they'll get a welcome email once that process is finished. And in that welcome email, this is a super important part of the process, that has a survey that is incredibly important for me because that gives me all the information that I need on each member. So that way I send the most optimal mystery box each month. And also, if they have a pre existing list of their own personal collection, they submit that to me so that way I don't send duplicates. And judging by, how in depth somebody is with the information they give me, that really gives me like everything I need to send them really cool records. And it's a really great way. One, if there are records that you've been searching for that you haven't found yet, like they'll let me know. So if I have those in the inventory, like I can include those. But I think it's a really, really great way for me to keep sharing my love and obsession with music with members to get them hip to artists, bands, or records that they might not have known about. And so it's in essence like I'm sharing my aspect of the hunt with them, and I'm as excited to turn them on to something new as I am to find and discover something new, you know.
Super fun, man. I love it. What separates a must-have album from a deep cut?
Sure. Must-haves, kind of looking above me, like some must-haves right there, like Abbey Road, Beatles, Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd. Records that are just completely like seminal I mean, well, shouldn't say life changing because a deeper cut album could be equally as life changing for somebody. But, just some of those, massive records that we've all heard about, like Led Zeppelin 2, Zeppelin 4, Let It Bleed, the Rolling Stones, Sticky Fingers, Rolling Stones, Tumbleweed Connection, Madman Across the Water, Elton John, Court and Spark or Joni Mitchell Blue, records like that. Allman Brothers at the Fillmore East, these just iconic records that round out a collection. Miles Davis Kind of Blue, John Coltrane Giant Steps, so that's what I mean where, it's like a must-have record.
Awesome. I got a question here for you. Let's say you had to move somewhere and maybe there's a nice new Streamline hi-fi stereo console in your living room and you're just getting set up. What's that first album you would play?
Really, that is completely personal, and I would say any album to anybody that has had a long-lasting personal impact on them. Like for me personally, I mean, either one of these records would go on there. Dark Side of the Moon or Abbey Road, or I'm thinking if it were Stones, probably something like Sticky Fingers or Exile on Main Street or Let It Bleed. Jimi Hendrix, Axis Bold as Love, Electric Ladyland. Are You Experienced? Freddie King is a blues master.
I
Giant
love that
Steps,
album.
John Coltrane. Any of those types of records that really just depending on what mood I was in genre wise, any record that I could trace back and think about and know exactly where I was like the first time I heard it, like Pearl Jam 10, um,
Yeah.
Jane's Addiction, Ritual Odilo Habitual, any one of those types of albums where you immediately are brought back to the time, sense, and place of where you were when you first heard that record in its entirety, not just like a song from it.
Yeah, agreed. Good answer. That's kind of a loaded question because it really does depend on the day, probably, on how you're feeling.
Yeah. But that being said, like whatever has had that long lasting, you know, feeling that pulls your heartstrings. I mean, because it's like you think about somebody that's going to make the investment to buy any portion of the, Streamline Hi-Fi line, right? That is already being incredibly intentional on a massive piece that's going to be in somebody's house that and I say massive as like in terms of a focal point. Like your product isn't something that somebody buys to just like have it and like, you know, buy it and forget about it, right? That is an incredibly intentional piece. So like given that that has already been, you know, decided and acted on by somebody, by a client, it's the same exact reason of now what do I put within this gorgeous console to listen to, you know?
What do you, how would I say this? What do you think in a perfect listening environment is for you?
Any place where you can really just kind of like tune out whatever else is around you and like a place that makes you feel warm, fuzzy, and at home. A place where you feel like, or I feel like I can either listen by myself and just totally go to a different place, or listen with people that I love.
Good answer. In a world where most people are streaming, why start a record collection right now?
Um, well, in the age of immediacy and where attention spans uh, sometimes can become, concepts of the past. In the era where people are trying to market themselves or market their music in 10-second bits in pieces, it's a perfect time to reconnect with yourself and with a community and be intentional about your time and listening to art. And with a record specifically, it's going on a journey and allowing yourself to go on a journey and not worry about how many likes or clicks you get or, how many streams your 10-second TikTok video just generated, Um, it's being able to allow yourself to listen to a story that whichever artist or band you're listening to wanted to tell you at the time, you know?
Absolutely. Agree 100% there. What's the rarest album you own?
That's a tough call. Um, there's a bunch. I would say off the top of my head, I mean, one of them being John Coltrane Giant Steps. I've got a first pressing um, from first pressing of that, I believe was 1959. So like that era of Atlantic Records, this is like super nerding out, by the way, had a just solid black record label um, with white font, and then shortly after that, they went to their Bullseye label, which was white with red and kind of purple trim around it, and then they went to the fan label. But so I have a first pressing of Giant Steps, which is not easy to come by. I mean, another record that I have, which is a total like White Buffalo album, is and it's also a white label radio promo copy. But I've got a white label radio promo copy of the Bobby Charles self-titled album that was produced in like the early 70s by Rick Danko from the band, and like the band played on the record along with like Dr. John. But for those of you who don't know, Bobby Charles was an amazing artist who came out of like the New Orleans area. He wrote "See You Later, Alligator" and was like super big in like that kind of 50s doo-wop rock and roll era, and then kind of, I hate to use the term, kind of drifted into a little bit of obscurity, but then kind of came out at the end of the 60s because he moved up to Woodstock and became friends with like Dylan and the band and stuff. And they put out this amazing record on the Bearsville label that just wasn't properly managed. And it just, typical situation of an artist kind of getting hosed by his record label. But if you can find it, it's an amazing, amazing record. And Oliver Wood from the Wood Brothers was the person that got me hip to that record because it was actually during COVID, we were hanging out at their house having a little bonfire in the backyard, and they had, something playing from the house. And I was like, what band album is this that I haven't heard of? Because it sounds like a band record. And he's like, no, man, that's Bobby Charles. And then like, that just started my obsession with Bobby Charles and like finding this record. And so that's probably one of the more rare albums that I have as well, aside from like a bunch of rare jazz and blues records and, some other more obscure rock and roll albums between rare records on their own or like, white label radio promo copies and stuff like that. So
Cool. Well, that Bobby Charles album just got added to my hunt list.
it's a hard one to find, man.
I bet. I bet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super
That
excited.
if I found one, sorry, if I found a copy of that just to let potential record club members know, that would have to fall under the dealer's choice category because it's a pricey record. So
Yeah, understood. That's fair. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm super excited to be talking to you again and just love what you're doing. And I'm excited for this giveaway you and I have coming up, where we're going to give away $200 worth of Old Soul Record Club um, merchandise or records, kind of dealer's choice for them. They can pick the plan that they want with you and maybe talk to you, and you can give them an idea of what would be the best avenue for them, which I'm really excited to be a part of.
Well, I just appreciate that we've stayed in touch all these years and that we've both been mutually appreciating what we're doing from afar. And this is, I think, a beautiful marriage of two cool ideas coming together, you know?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, agreed. Well, thank you so much, Matthew, for your time, and I look forward to seeing more stuff come out of Old Soul Record here soon.
Likewise, man. I've been drooling every time I see a post of anything that you make for any of your clients. It's a beautiful thing to witness. So
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Same.
awesome.
All right, Matthew, you have a great day. Thanks for your time. Okay.
You too, Steve.